Do idols actually like their songs when they're bad or cringe? Short answer, no. I can just kind of give a quick debrief into song selection and receiving the songs. I've mentioned this before, artists don't usually get a lot of say in what songs are selected. And this is just a general statement where I do know some cases where some artists do have a little more authority. We're gonna go through this really quick. Disclaimer, this is not applicable to everybody. This is usually speaking from my knowledge and my experience and is not targeting anybody or coming for anyone's throat. I would love to reach a day one day where I don't have to explain that, but for now, so before a comeback or debut or whatever, a company will send out a lead. This will go to different publishing companies and songwriters. So from here, producers, songwriters, they'll receive these leads, what kind of vibe, what kind of concept they're looking for. Also references. So for example, oh, we want a song that kind of sounds like this other song. They'll take that and they'll kind of build around it. These song demos will then be sent to the company. The company's A&R will usually choose from here. Depending on the company, they'll receive a good number of songs and then they'll start sifting through until they come down to a final couple. I know some companies will have the artists listen to the song and give their vote onto which one they want. But for the most part, at the end of the day, it's the company that makes the decision. We've all probably heard stories about artists receiving their songs and hearing it for the first time and crying. And they're crying because, yeah, they don't like a song. And it sucks sometimes because you have to go out and do it anyways. Because at the end of the day, it is the idol that goes on stage. And if it's a shit song, then it's very unfortunate because when they go out, that's their face, that's their discography. This also goes for choreography. This also goes for outfits. This goes for pretty much everything. Because the artist is basically a product, they don't really have much of a say as to what goes on. They can definitely say something, but it's not always going to be listened to. I remember receiving some demos for some songs and listening to them and being like, well, this is shit. Like, we cannot do this. I won't allow it. But luckily, I think in my case, none of the really extreme ones made it. But they got really close and I was getting real pressed about it. The company will do what they feel will do best in terms of marketing. The thing is, sometimes this revolves around sheer opinion in terms of what's trending. Because like I've said before, old ass men are sometimes the people that are running this, and these old ass men don't really understand sometimes. So for the song, basically a lot of the times the idols, if they don't like it and they get chosen anyways, they just kind of have to grin and bear it. I think as time progresses and if the artists do well, then it's easier for them to have a say, because at that point I think the company needs them more than they need the company, which is really unfortunate because I believe companies and artists should work together and be on the same side. They're working together, not for each other, but that's not really a thing. So in a way where when I explain this, it's actually just very much so like a corporate job. There are things that you don't want to do and don't like and don't agree with that you have to do anyways. It's just a little more publicized. If you go out with a shit song, the artists are going to get the backlash. But the thing is, it's not always like a shit song. It might just be a song that the artist doesn't want to do. And there are cases where artists hated a song but it did really well, which is unfortunate because that means they have to keep doing it. In that way, the music industry is very much like any other industry. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices in order to get on the grid. So if they have to take risks, do something super weird or campy or really, really bad, then sometimes that works. To smaller companies especially, all press is good press. It just comes at the expense of these artists' dignity, because the entertainment industry is the entertainment industry. The absolute worst thing that could happen to an artist in the entertainment industry is that no one knows who they are. This in a way ties into the whole sellout thing. Not only Korean artists, but just a lot of artists in general. They will release songs in the beginning that they know will do well, get on the map, blow up, whatever it is, and as time passes, they go to the original genre that they did originally like to do. Don't get me wrong, there are artists that are out there that are extremely talented and extremely great to a point where that can break through the mainstream wall. For the most part, this is the general formula of how to create a star. I don't disagree with groups or artists being sellouts, but I will say that I wish that sometimes they would also value the artist's dignity and their image of what they want to put out for themselves. But this was the video. I hope you guys enjoyed and this gave a little more insight, but leave me questions below. Thank you so much for watching. Bye! You look so much prettier these days than when you were an idol. Well, yes. I feel that my glow up happened actually after my career ended. I debuted when I was 19 and I am currently 23, so it's been a while. I have heard this same exact comment from not only I guess the internet, but also from friends, family. I really do think this has to do with self-discovery. When you're an idol or you're in a company, your hair, your makeup, your outfits, pretty much everything that has to do with aesthetics is basically made by said company for the most part. And if you've seen my video that I did about plastic surgery, this kind of ties into that. I was probably actually less concerned with my appearance, I guess, whenever I was an idol, as opposed to, I guess, now, if that makes sense. I basically found my own style, what I think suits me best, and also I think I started taking care of myself more. Not saying I wasn't being taken care of when I was an idol, but just in a way where I have different motives for taking care of myself. During the time that I was an idol, I was more concerned about my appearance for the sake of the public
public eye. And now that I'm no longer an idol, I don't feel the pressure of really having to fit into that mold per se anymore. There's a difference between taking care of yourself because you feel that you have to versus because you want to. And that was a really big distinction that I learned over the past few years. After I stopped being an idol, I felt that I, in a way, lost part of my identity, if that makes sense. Because my job was pretty much my life for so many years. Even though I wasn't an idol for that long, my trainee period and everything just really accumulated. It took me a while to feel comfortable in myself. I also think that mental health was a really big part of this. I truly believe that if someone's doing well emotionally, then they do have a different glow about them. In a way, to succeed in the entertainment field, I really do believe you have to have a certain type of self-confidence or self-esteem in order to be able to maintain that lifestyle. But I think it's hard to feel that kind of self-confidence, especially whenever you're a young, growing teen. Over time, I realized there were a lot of things that I needed or wanted to do to take care of myself and my health, because I will say that my health did kind of deteriorate in both aspects, like physical and mental. Like, I lost my period at one point, I got pneumonia, I got vocal nodules. Some of these were due to stress, and then some of these were just sheerly due to overexertion. And I also started taking care of my mental health a lot, doing therapy more regularly, journaling, praying. This means what helped me in my mental health journey. When I was in a label, there were expectations and also, I guess, in a way, goals that they had for me that I couldn't really reach at that time. But now that I'm older, those things just kind of happen. Back then, I thought I was so grown and I thought I was basically an adult. But I look back now and I realized I was a kid. I didn't know anything. I was trying to have this type of face or body that I literally could not obtain because I was a teenager. I think that's where I struggled a lot. Some people are able to obtain that and have that from a younger age, but I just did not. And I also just don't think that I had the self-confidence or esteem that I have now. But what I do have now came through a lot of work on my end that I don't think I had the time to do back then. Because at that time, at that age, I basically did believe whatever they were telling me. Because I thought to myself, they're the adults. They know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. Being older now, and also being the age of a lot of the people that told me that stuff, I realized that they didn't know what they were doing either. So I sincerely actually thank you for saying that I look better now, because I also think so. And I feel better. So, I know this wasn't as interesting of a video, but I hope you enjoyed it. This was just more so about me, and I know a lot of people actually don't care about that on TikTok. They just want me to spill the hot tea. But thanks for watching. Bye! How did you become the main vocal of your group? This video will be more about the process of, I guess, the casting, and then how companies will form a group. The most common situation is that companies, when they decide that they want to create a group, they will begin casting people based on the bracket, I guess, of what kind of group they want to make. A lot of companies that I've seen will cast people based on their skills or potential. However, sometimes companies will also just cast people because they like them without any plan in mind. When I joined the company that I ended up debuting in, I had basically been recruited via a friend that I had trained prior with. They had basically told me that they were looking for a vocalist, and from there I fit the description. This is the same way you'll hear about situations where some trainees will have trained for years and years, whereas some trainees will only have trained for a few months and then they debut together. Because most companies usually have a timeline as to when they want to debut their group. Most companies just cast people with that intent in mind. But this can change drastically after the company has actually begun casting and training people. Because you could find X number of super talented people and put them together, yeah. But sometimes those people, no matter how talented they are, won't suit each other or they won't get along. And if this is to a point where it gets really severe, then the company will begin having to cut their losses by prioritizing the member or members they think are the most crucial to a group. If there's something particular that they're looking for and they see someone who kind of fits the description, they'll take them in and then they'll train them and see if that person, after they've trained and grown, is actually what they want for the group. And if they aren't, they'll usually let them go. My only problem with this is whenever they actually don't let those people go, and these people will spend however many years of their lives literally like in a dungeon. Because I honestly don't believe that a person who's trained longer is automatically better. In my case, as someone who had started singing from a really young age, I obviously was pushed more as being a vocalist. But there are also some times where trainees or members will be pushed into a position that they originally weren't doing, where at that point they just kind of need someone to fill in the gap, which is why they make like lead vocal, and they'll make a rapper of someone who just, I don't know, speaks English. Sometimes they'll cast people to the company that are a little more versatile in terms of style, where for me, I was kind of undoubtedly a singer, but there are people who are kind of evenly split master of none, where some people will have come into the company without really a set position, and from there the company will have them test out different roles and see what suits them best, while also taking into account what the group lacks. Best case scenario is that the company can just highlight what the trainees already have, but there are some cases where they really just need a filler member or somebody to kind of take up the other parts. So from here, whatever the company decides to push them as, it may not be their greatest strength, but at that point that's what the group needs. I do think, however, in recent times, the roles have changed in terms of what they feel is most crucial to a group. Back then, they really did need their artists to be strong vocalists because you were going out as a singer and backing tracks weren't as heavily used back then. Whereas now I think they're a lot more focused on the performance and visual aspects. I think a lot of companies also really heavily capitalize on the whole global aspect of it now, since K-pop has become a really global thing. Because these days, more often than not, you'll usually find every group has a foreigner who speaks a different language, i.e. me. And this is so that the group has a better chance of reaching other audiences. My only beef with this situation is whenever they keep kids for a super long period of time and they don't release them and they don't end up debuting them. And at that point, that trainee's entire youth is kind of gone, to which they kind of have to play catch up then with the rest of the world, and they have kind of no experience in life. I kind of had that for a bit, but I think thanks to the people that I met and the people that were around me, it really sped up the process. But that's the video for today. Thanks for watching. Bye!
Spill some tea about plastic surgeries. Plastic surgery is not an uncommon part of the entertainment industry, especially in the K-pop industry where aesthetics is very highly valued. A lot of people have very different experiences with plastic surgery, whether they've gotten it or not, or what made them get it. I personally have never gotten plastic surgery or any procedures done. It was a part of my career where there was a point where I was kind of influenced into getting it, but in the end I just chose not to. Everyone's favorite disclaimer time. This is not targeting anybody, this is not coming for anyone's throat. This is surely speaking from my knowledge and my experience. For this particular video though, I would like to put in an extra disclaimer. I do not disagree with plastic surgery in any way. I know there's a negative stigma around plastic surgery, but if somebody gets it, doesn't make me think any different of them. I think that if the person wants to get it or is happy with it and they have the means to get it done, then I don't really see a problem. Moving forward, when I first joined the whole K-pop industry, basically, one of the first things that happened was I was put into an aesthetics meeting. I sat down at a table with somebody who I guess knows about that kind of stuff, and she had me sit and then give her my profiles, like my side profiles, and then pull my hair back. And from here, she talked about a few procedures that she would recommend for me to get done. She just recommended the nose and some injection, which I don't know the name of, but you get it in your cheeks and it burns the fat in your cheeks, since I do have chubbier cheeks, and since I was younger at the time, they were definitely like more chubby. My company at the time though did clarify to me that it was not necessary for me to get it. In the future, however, as I got older, the behavior kind of changed. More than directly pressuring them, what some companies will do sometimes, usually not even the companies, but sometimes like staff or whoever, they will coerce these people into getting the surgery. I started receiving like more comments about my appearance. By this, I mean making little comments on the side. For example, if we took pictures or something, it'd be like, oh, you'd be so pretty, or you'd be so much prettier if you got blah, blah, blah done. I think one of the most severe coercions that I received was that, oh, you're gonna be debuting with the team. You not willing to get anything done is basically going to hurt the team. So in that way, they were basically saying like, if you're ugly, you are going to bring the success rate of the team down. My biggest thing was that at the end of the day, I knew that I was a singer. I was pretty okay at dancing. In the triangle of K-pop where it's like singing, dancing, and visual, I knew that visual is probably like my weaker point. But at that point, I didn't really need to be doing everything. And from there, I didn't have any greed to be like the prettiest person in the room. But they'll be very sneaky with it in a way where they'll kind of be like, oh, don't you want to be prettier? Don't you want to do better? It's just very backhanded at that point. I would say that this comes from not just the companies, but from a lot of other people around you. It'll be staff, it'll be other like trainees or whatever. This isn't like super sinister in a way where from a business perspective, you do have to stand out somehow, especially if there's maybe say a member whose strength isn't really in vocals or dance, then they need to serve face. And obviously if they are really talented and skilled in those areas, then if they do all that and serve face, you're good to go. Not only idols, but most entertainers, people are not seeing them in person for the most part, and because of this, you have to be able to look good on camera. So because of that, if you're going to be in this field where your entire existence and other people's knowledge of you is based on photos and things like that, they want to make sure that you are the most photogenic as you can possibly be. There is a beauty standard. My only thing with that is that the beauty standard changes so often. You can't really win. But for the most part, businesses or companies are really just trying to appeal to the GP or the general public because they want as many people to know their group or their idols as possible. People aren't always going to stick around to watch a whole like 3-minute performance. Visuals are the first thing that catches people's eye. From people I've heard that have gotten stuff done, like the company will ask them, or they'll also have an aesthetics meeting and they'll be like, oh, I recommend you get this and this. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. They go and get it done. Or they'll be like, hey, I want to get this filler or something, and the company will be like, okay, yeah, sure, and they'll do it for them. I have, however, heard stories similar to mine where people were either really heavily coerced into it and then ended up getting it. I think the worst one that I've ever heard is that they basically said, if you don't get this done, we're not gonna debut you. So they ended up getting it done, and then they didn't even end up debuting them. So yeah, people are liars, and lying is a sin. These days, though, I will say that I think more than actual surgeries anymore, artists tend to get more fillers or procedures done than actual surgeries. A lot more people get nose fillers, like on their nose bridge, rather than getting a rhinoplasty, or they'll get like Botox or things like that. But it's different per company, it's different per person, as is pretty much everything that I talk about. But this was my experience and also a few other people's experience that I pulled from and asked them about. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know other questions that you have and I will do my best to answer them. Bye!
Do you recommend going to college? Yes, I do. I started my college career about a year ago. For the most part, when people talk about college and how it's the best years of their lives, I don't think that. As someone who did do pretty well in school growing up, there are a lot of things in life that no matter how hard you try, sometimes it just doesn't pan out. School was always a place that, depending on the direct input of my effort, I would get the results that I wanted, aka grades. And I know that actually stresses a lot of people out in a way of being measured by that. But because I'm kind of a control freak, this actually works well for me. I love getting feedback and results that I would be able to know what I can do to get better. What school I think is really good at is kind of teaching discipline and following instructions. Because I go to a music school, there's a lot of composition assignments where you actually have to create a song or whatever. And more often than not, with the requirements that you have for that specific class, it's not based on whether the song is good or not. It's just if you follow the instructions and are hitting the points needed. And as someone who's worked in music for a pretty long time, it's actually kind of relieving in a way where I don't feel like I have to always bring in or make something like new or extravagant. It's genuinely just like, it could sound like ass, but I'd still get 100 because I hit all the requirements. Going to college gave me a routine that took me a while to adjust to, but I actually ended up really enjoying. And if there's one thing about me, I love academic validation, which I know isn't the case for a lot of people in terms of academia, but for me it is. As for the cons of college, there's the glaringly obvious one, which is crushing student debt, especially with the college system in America. And I don't know what it is about me that whatever I'm doing in life, somehow debt is always involved. But student debt, it's a different game. Because tuition cost is so high, I never take anything for granted here. Where I show up to all of my classes, I really apply myself because like, girl, I'm paying for it. If there's anything that I really struggle with, particularly in school, it's actually the social aspect. I'm just really busy all the time and I don't have the social battery to really keep up or have the desire to meet new people, which I'm trying to fix. I can socialize, but I am an introvert. So I participate in class, and at that point, that's a lot. So after that, I grab my books and I dip. I actually really recommend taking a gap year before going to college. I truly believe that because I worked before pursuing higher education, my work ethic is really good, and also I have a better gist of why I'm studying and what I'm trying to do with it in the future. So there's not as much of a guessing game when it comes to declaring my major or wasting my time or credits on classes that I do not need. Because once again, tuition's expensive as hell. It also gives me a lot more motivation and drive. Whenever I first moved for school, I was really reluctant to come. That's why my first semester was really shitty. So after my first semester, I stopped, ran away back to Korea, played with my friends a little bit, got my shit together, and then came back, and now I've been in school for about a year. At that point, it's you finding the drive to do things on your own because you want to. In the beginning, I started going to college not because I wanted to, but because it was more of a you have to go kind of thing, and that's why I hated it. But after I talked to a lot of people and saw my friends or whatever in Korea, it really put a lot of things into perspective, and now I'm that much closer to getting my degree. Yeah, I could kind of go without the crushing debt, but you know, what's new? Long story short, I do think that going to college is worth it. Just taking it slow. I don't think that you need to put so much pressure on yourself of like, I need to get a degree per se, because the world is changing and it really is a privilege if you are able to go to school. Hope that this video was a little bit insightful on that end, and I hope you guys enjoyed. It's midterms week. I'm gonna go cry now. Bye!
Would you ever become an idol again? There's a lot of discourse as to why I am no longer an idol, and honestly I can't really disclose the exact reason as to why, but I can tell you that most of the stuff that I've seen is wrong. There were certain aspects of being an idol that I did like and certain aspects that I didn't, which is pretty much the same as any job. But for me, the pros did outweigh the cons, so I never really minded it too much, where at that point I would just kind of deal with whatever came up and then move through it. The main reason why I would have become an idol again is because honestly I already was. I know a lot of people re-debut in different groups or as a soloist, but in my case I don't really want to unless it's kind of on my own terms now. There's also the fact that I'm 23, which means in K-pop years that I'm a hag, but being the age that I am now and going through what I've gone through, I don't think I'd be as lenient to let as many things slide, which would probably make it more difficult. And since I'm studying as a music business major now, there are too many things that I know that a lot of companies would not want me to know. It's not that I wouldn't become an idol again because I didn't like the job. Part of it is that I'm no longer a teenager, so if I re-debuted or whatever and went into a normal K-pop contract, which usually spans around 7 years, I would come out when I'm 30, because being an idol is a really big risk in terms of the time, and you don't always have a guarantee that you're going to do well. Another part of it is that I don't want to be in debt anymore. Thing is, I am currently a student, so I already have debt accumulating. However, that debt is going towards me getting a degree, which is more so applicable to the real world as opposed to being an idol, to be honest. Even if I were to re-debut as a solo artist, there's not really that much that'd be different. And up until now, since my life was so unpredictable, it's nice knowing that I have a routine now and that I have some stability. I've never considered re-debuting in another group because I feel that my run with my group was really good, and for what it was, it did do pretty well, where I don't have any regrets or anything that I feel like, oh, I should have done this or I shouldn't have done that. Where looking back now, I really do believe that everything went according to God's plan, and there were times where I was really confused, but through self-reflection and a lot of therapy, I'm able to look back on it pretty fondly. And I really like the people that I worked with, to where I think if I ever tried to do it again, I would to an extent be comparing it to my previous experience. So I never really thought to re-debut in another group because I was, for lack of better words, satisfied with my experience, where I now view it as a chapter of my life that taught me a lot but is now completed. Yes, there were a lot of parts that I wish could have been different, but those were aspects that were completely out of my control, where I realized that I don't need to blame myself for things that I had no jurisdiction over, even if the internet does, because the people who are actually there and know what happened, which I could not be more grateful for, and that is honestly enough for me now. And it's been almost 3 years now since my retirement from being an idol, and over time I can honestly say that I like where my life is now, so I don't really feel the need to chase a dream that's already come true. I honestly don't know if this video made sense, but I hope this answered your question and gave you guys a better sense of where I'm coming from. Thanks for watching!